So now that all the setup is complete, we can start building our application. So I have it running here on an IR simulator. You can run it yourself by clicking on Run and then Run without debugging, and you can select the platform here. So first thing, let's get rid of all the boilerplate code. And I'll remove this, and then I'll change this from my app to be Chatly, and we'll create that. So we'll say STL for stateless widget, and then we'll say Chatly. Save that, and then I'll change container to be material app, and then I'll give it a home widget to be a scaffold. And when we refresh this, it should get rid of this error. Now in the test directory, we have an error here, so we need to change this to be chat. And this blue line is coming from the linter saying prefer const with const constructors, so we'll add a constant keyword here. Let's go back to main. Here again, let's add const, and then add const here. And let's get rid of the debug banner. So we'll say debug show check mode banner to be false. So the first screen that we want to create will look something like this. So we'll have a title, a subtitle, we'll have email and password inputs, and then it will have two buttons, a login button and a sign up button. So let's create that. So first we'll create a new directory under lib, and then we'll call it screens. Then I'll create a new file and then call it login underscore screen.dart. And then I'll create a stateless widget here and say login screen. We need to import the material package and replace container with scaffold. Make that a constant. And then here let's also give it an ID. So say static const string ID is equals to login underscore screen. And now what we can do is in main.dart add a new routes property, and then add a login screen.id route, which points to a function, takes in a context, and returns the login screen widget. Now we need to remove this to get rid of that error, add a constant here, and instead of having a home property, we'll change this to be initial route, and instead of scaffold, we'll say login screen.id. So that will point to the login screen route. Now let's refresh this to get rid of this error. Let's go back to login screen and let's start creating it. So let's start off with a scaffold. So we'll give it a background color of K purple color. Next we'll give it a body and we'll give it a safe area widget. And that will have a single child scroll view widget with a child of a column. Let's add some commas, and here you'll see this error, so we need to remove this const from here. Next, what we need to do is, so if you look at the design, we have some space at the top, and then we have two text widgets, and then we have some space, and then a text form field, some space, and then two buttons. So we'll start off by the space at the top, so we'll have a sized box widget. We'll give it a height of media query dot of context dot size dot height times 0.1. What this will do is we'll get the height of the current screen, and then it will get 10% of that height, and then make it the height of this size box widget. Next, let's add two text widgets. So say const text Chatly. We'll give it a style to be text style. And then we'll give it a font family to be VT323. This is the font that we configured, and then we'll give it a font size of 64. Let's copy this, and then we'll change this to be real-time chat. And instead of 64, let's make it 32. Now, if you see this, the column is taking as much space as its children, so we want to expand the column. So we'll wrap the column with a size box widget, and we'll give it a width of double.infinity. Now let's also add some spacing here before our text form fields. So we'll add a size box widget, and we'll give it a height of 64. So let's add the email input, so say text form field. And first it will take in a controller. So we'll create a controller called underscore email controller. So we need to create that. So we'll come here at the top, say final underscore email controller is equals to text editing controller. Then we'll copy this and make this one password controller. Let's remove this constant and let's go in main as well and then remove that. Let's go back to login screen so we can see the text input here. So let's add some styling to it. So first of all, let's add a cursor color. So we'll give it dark gray. Next we'll add some decoration. So we'll say input decoration, give it a hint text to be email, and then fill color to be colors.white, and then filled to be true. So now you can see that it's white. Now we want to get rid of this blue line. So we'll say border is equals to outline input border. Give it border side to be border side dot none. So this should get rid of the blue line. We also need to give it a radius, so say border radius to be border radius dot circular, and give it 8. And let's add a comma here for indentation. Now we don't want this to take the entire screen on web, so what we're going to do is wrap the text form field with another container widget, and we'll give it constraints, so box constraints, max width to be 500. This way, on larger screens, the text input would not take the entire screen. Now let's also wrap this column with a padding widget, so we'll come here and say padding, and then make this symmetric, and horizontally give it 16. That way we have padding on either side. Now let's copy this text field for the password. So I'll copy this, and down here paste that, and change this from email to password. We'll say obscure text to be true, and then change the controller from email controller to be password controller. That way when the user types here, the text will be hidden. Let's also add some spacing between the two text form fields. So we'll come here, say const sized box, give it a height of 8. Now I'm going to copy this, paste this at the bottom, and make it 12. So what we need to add now are the two buttons. So we'll have a login button, and then we have a sign up button. So we'll start off with the login button. So we'll create an elevated button, and we'll give it style to be button style, background color to be material state property dot all, and then passing in the color, so say K dark gray. Let's add comments here for indentation. Now the elevated button also needs an onPressed callback, so say onPressed. So this will be a function, and then we need to also give it a child, so say child to be const text and then log in. Now we want this button to take as much space as the text form fields, so what we're going to do is wrap this with a container, and we give it a height of 50 and a width of double.infinity. We also need to add some constraints, so say constraints, box constraints, and then maximum width to be 500. That way on larger screens, the button will not take the entire screen. Next, we'll add the sign up button. So under container, we'll come here and then say text button. And then we'll say on pressed, it's going to be an empty callback for now. And then style will be button style. Say foreground color to be material state property dot all k dot gray. Let's also add a chunk. So say chunk a const text. So we say don't have an account question mark and then sign up. Save that. So you can see now we have this button. Now when we click on this sign up button, we want to navigate to the registration screen. So let's create that. So under screens, I'll create a new file called registration underscore screen.dart. And then I'll come back to login screen and then copy everything and then paste it here. And then at the top, I'm going to change login screen to be registration screen. And then this string right here, I'll change this to registration. And then the title, instead of Chatly, it will say sign up. And then I'll remove this. And let's go back to main. And under routes, I'll add another route and make that registration screen. So now in login screen, we can make this clickable and to navigate. So here on pressed, what we're going to say is navigator.push named, pass in the context, and then the route name will be registration screen.id. So I'm going to refresh this and let's see. So once you click this, it went to the sign up screen. Now let's change this button from don't have an account sign up to back to login and change this to sign up. So I'm going to go to registration screen and then change this to back to login. And what this button will do is navigator.pop and context. So now when I click here, it goes back to the login screen. Let's change this button title to sign up. Now let's also add another text field to take in the display name. So we'll come here and then we'll copy this and then paste it here. And then this one will be name. And for that, we need to add a name controller. So we'll say name here. And then we'll create that here. So let's copy this and make this name controller. Let's also make the text capitalization property to be text capitalization dot words. That way when the user types their name, every word will be capitalized. Now let's add some validation to our text fields. So we'll start off with the login screen. And then for that, we have to create a form key. So we say final underscore form key is equals to global key of type form state. And this will allow us to validate the form. Now in order to do that, we need to wrap this column in a form widget. So we're going to wrap this and say form, and then we give it a key to be underscore form key. And then we're going to have a function called underscore handle login if underscore form key dot current state is not equals to null and underscore form key dot current state dot validate if the form is valid. Then we want to perform some action here. So in our case, we want to sign in the user. So right now we're in the login screen. Now let's add some validators. So we'll come here. For the email input, we're going to say validator. It's going to be a function that takes in a value. So we're going to say value is not equals to null and is email. So this is a method provided to us by the Validators package. And then we give it the value.trim, making sure that there are no white spaces at the end, null. Otherwise, we're going to say invalid input. Basically, what this is saying is this. If we try to submit this form, if the value is equal to null or it is not an email, then we're going to return invalid input, and that will be displayed on the screen. Otherwise, if the value is not equal to null and the value is an email, then we're going to return null for the error. That means that everything is valid. Let's do the same thing for password. And what we want for the password is that for it to have more than 6 characters. So I'm going to come here and say validator. It's going to be a function, say value. It's going to be value is not equals to null, and value.length is greater than or equals to 6, then null. Otherwise, field must have at least 6 characters. Let's save that. And now when we click on the login button, we want to call the method that we created. So we're going to say handle login. So let's try it. So if I do this, since the email is invalid, it says invalid input. And since the password has less than 6 characters, it gives us the validation. Let's do the same thing for the registration screen. So we're going to go to registration screen. At the top, let's add the form key. So we can say final_form key equals to global key of type form state. And we'll have a method called handle signup. And then the same thing, we're going to say _form key dot current state is not equals to null, and form key dot current state dot validate, and then we're going to handle user sign up. Let's also wrap the column with a form widget. So we're going to wrap this with a widget, make it a form, give it a key to be _form key. And for the validations, for the name, we're going to say validator function value. So value is not equals to null, and value.trim length is greater than or equals to 2. So the name could have at least 2 characters and is alpha. So we want all the characters in the string to be alphabets. It cannot be numbers. We're going to give it value.trim as well. We want to get rid of any white spaces on the sides. And then if it's valid, we're going to return null. Otherwise, we're going to say invalid input. Next, for the email, we can copy the same validation from the login screen. So come here, and then go up to the email validation, copy that, come to registration screen, paste it here, and same thing with the password. So we'll come here, copy this, come back to registration screen, and then paste that here.